Derek Lawson, a 34-year-old self-made millionaire, stood at the edge of his grand banquet hall, the crystal glass of red wine trembling faintly in his hand. He was a man known for his sharp mind and even sharper instincts, ruthless in business, admired for his wealth, but secretly weary of the false smiles around him. Tonight, he was surrounded by people who praised him, toasted him, and smiled for the cameras. Yet, just as he raised the glass to his lips, a soft, almost desperate voice cut through the glittering music and clinking glasses. "Sir, please, don't sip that." He turned, startled, and saw her, a young, frail girl no older than 19, dressed in a simple maid's uniform, her dark skin contrasting with the golden glow of the chandeliers. Her name, as he would later learn, was Amara. Her eyes were wide, filled with fear and something else, truth. Why was she warning him? What did she know about the drink he was holding? And why did her trembling hand point to it as if it carried death itself? The chandeliers glimmered like stars above the sprawling hall, throwing warm golden light upon the rows of wealthy guests dressed in velvet gowns and tailored suits. The air smelled of aged wine, polished wood, and expensive perfume. Musicians played softly in the corner, their violins weaving through the hum of gossip and laughter. It was a night meant for celebration. Derek's latest real estate venture had doubled in value overnight, and the elite of the city gathered to bask in his success. But Derek's mind was elsewhere. He had noticed things tonight, small, unsettling things. His fiancée, Cassandra, whispering too closely with one of his business rivals. The way his chief accountant kept glancing at the envelope tucked in Derek's inner pocket. And now this, a maid, trembling, daring to step into the spotlight of his world with a warning no one else heard. He lowered the glass slowly. "What did you say?" Amara's voice was barely a whisper. "Please, don't drink it." Guests turned their heads. Some laughed nervously. Cassandra approached, her crimson dress flowing like liquid flame, her smile sharp as glass. "Derek, why are you hesitating? The toast is about you." Her hand gently pressed his, encouraging him to drink, but he kept his gaze on the girl. "Why not?" he asked Amara. "Tell me here, in front of everyone. Why shouldn't I drink?" The room stilled. The musicians faltered. The girl's lips quivered. "Because, it isn't what you think. Someone doesn't want you alive tonight." Laughter erupted from the crowd, forced, uneasy. "How ridiculous." Cassandra scoffed. "She's just a maid. Probably trying to get attention." But Derek had built his empire by listening to the whispers others ignored. His heart thudded against his ribs. "Who sent you?" he asked. "No one," Amara replied, her voice cracking. "I cleaned these glasses. I saw something." The hall was now silent, every eye watching. Cassandra tightened her grip on his arm. "Derek, this is embarrassing. Drink the wine, for heaven's sake." But he didn't. Not yet. Later that evening, Derek retreated to his private study, the glass untouched on the table. Amara was brought in, escorted by two stern-faced security guards. Her head was bowed, her hands trembling as though she expected to be fired or worse. "Close the door," Derek ordered. The guards obeyed. "Now, talk," he said, his voice low but commanding. "What did you see?" Amara swallowed hard. "I was clearing the tables, and I saw Miss Cassandra speaking with Mr. Hargrove, the man from the rival company. They slipped something into the wine. I thought it was sugar at first, but the way they looked around." Derek's jaw tightened. "You're saying my fiancé tried to poison me? Here? In my own home?" "I'm saying I don't know what it was," Amara whispered. "But I saw it. And I couldn't let you drink it." The fire crackled in the hearth, throwing long shadows on the walls. Derek leaned back in his chair, his mind spinning. Cassandra, his soon-to-be wife, the woman he trusted enough to sign his will in her favor, plotting against him? He looked at the girl again. Her hands were calloused, her uniform worn. No gain for her in this. Only risk. "Why would you risk everything to warn me?" he asked. Tears welled in her eyes. "Because I know what it's like to lose everything. I couldn't watch it happen to someone else. The next morning, the newspapers were full of photos from the party. Derek Lawson celebrates record profits, the headlines read. But behind the polished smiles and champagne flutes, a storm was brewing. Derek began watching Cassandra closely. She, in turn, became more affectionate than usual, too affectionate. Her kisses felt like masks, her words like rehearsed lines. Amara was quietly removed from the staff list that day. Cassandra claimed the girl had stolen jewelry. No proof was given. Derek ordered his secretary to find her. Quietly, he said. By dusk, they found her living in a small rented room on the edge of the city, her belongings packed in a single worn suitcase. She was ready to leave, perhaps to disappear forever. Why didn't you come to me directly after they fired you? He asked when he arrived. I knew they would make me the villain, she said, her voice calm but broken. That's how people like them work. Something stirred in Derek's chest. Pity, perhaps. Or maybe respect. A week passed, and Derek had the wine tested. The results were inconclusive. The substance was rare, nearly undetectable, but harmful in high doses, slow-acting, untraceable in a crowded room. Cassandra never mentioned the incident again, but her eyes followed him differently now, as if she wondered what he knew. Derek began to plan. Not out of fear, but out of a deep, cold need for truth. He invited Amara back. Offered her a safer job, this time as his personal assistant, not out of charity, but because he needed someone who had no reason to lie. And then, one evening, as the rain lashed against the glass walls of his penthouse, Derek sat alone with a new glass of wine in front of him. Cassandra would be arriving soon. The lights were dim, the city below a maze of glittering streets. He thought of the girl's trembling voice. The moment the party had paused. The world had mocked her, but what if she had saved his life? Tonight, he would act. But not by exposing her, not yet. Cassandra entered, smiling like a serpent. Still brooding about that silly maid, she teased, pouring herself a drink. Derek smiled faintly. Funny how the smallest voices can cause the biggest cracks. Her smile faltered for the briefest second. And that's when he knew. The rain kept falling over the city that night, painting the windows of Derek Lawson's penthouse with long silver streaks. The sound was steady, almost hypnotic, yet his mind was a battlefield of voices: Amara's desperate warning, Cassandra's soft laughter, the quiet venom behind every toast that evening. He sat alone at his marble table, the untouched wine before him, his fingers slowly turning the glass as if it were a loaded weapon. The door opened softly. Cassandra stepped in, her red dress replaced with a sleek black one, her hair tied back, her perfume filling the room with an intoxicating sweetness. She moved like a woman who owned the world, or wanted to. You're quiet tonight, she said, setting her purse on the counter. Still thinking about that maid? Derek looked at her, his dark eyes unreadable. Funny, he said softly, how a maid can say one sentence and it keeps ringing louder than all the music in the room. She chuckled lightly, but her shoulders stiffened. Derek, you've been on edge for weeks. You work too much. You see shadows where there are none. Maybe, he said, swirling the wine. Or maybe I finally started looking at the right shadows. The next morning, Derek called a private investigator he trusted, Leon Cruz, a grizzled ex-detective who had once saved Derek's company from a massive fraud. Leon, I need you to look into Cassandra. Discreetly. Her connections, her meetings, especially with Gerald Hargrove. Don't ask why. Just find out who she really is. There was a pause on the other end. That's your fiancée you're asking me to investigate, Derek. I know, Derek replied coldly. And that should scare me, shouldn't it? Meanwhile, Amara started her new life as Derek's assistant. She worked quietly, efficiently, always avoiding Cassandra's gaze when their paths crossed. Cassandra hated her presence, that much was clear. The other staff whispered behind her back, calling her lucky, calling her sly. One afternoon, as they sorted through Derek's travel documents, Amara looked up and asked timidly, "Do you believe me now?" Derek didn't answer right away. He signed a few more papers, then leaned back. Belief is expensive in my world, Amara. I buy it slowly. She lowered her eyes. I didn't want your money. I only wanted you to live. For a moment, his hand froze over the paper. He had heard many words in his life, deals, threats, promises, but not that kind of sincerity. Days passed, and Leon returned with something that made Derek's blood run cold. Cassandra had secret meetings with Hargrove in a private villa outside the city on nights she claimed to be visiting her aunt. Large sums of money had been transferred through offshore accounts. And then there was the life insurance policy recently updated, placing Cassandra as the sole beneficiary of Derek's assets if he died unexpectedly. Leon's words were clear, she's planning something, Derek. And that made she wasn't lying. That evening, Derek hosted another dinner. This time, his expression was calm, almost cold, as if the walls around him had hardened. Cassandra was radiant as always, her laughter echoing across the room, her hand slipping through his arm as cameras flashed. Amara served quietly in the background, eyes lowered, yet her presence was like a shadow he trusted more than the guests around him. At one point, Cassandra handed him another glass of wine, her lips curving into that perfect practiced smile. Just one sip, she whispered. Derek raised it to his lips, his eyes never leaving hers, and then he smiled faintly and set it back down. Maybe later, he said. Her smile stiffened. That night, after the guests left, Cassandra stormed into his study. You're making a fool of me, Derek. Refusing my toast, humiliating me in front of our friends, what's wrong with you? He leaned back in his leather chair, the city lights glowing behind him. Maybe I'm just tired of drinking what I'm not sure is wine. Her face paled slightly. What are you implying? Nothing, yet. 2 nights later, Derek's plan began. He pretended to leave for a business trip, informing everyone, including Cassandra, that he'd be away for 3 days. But he stayed hidden in the city, watching. Cassandra, thinking the coast was clear, met with Hargrove again. This time, Leon captured everything: photos, recordings, even the whispered plan, the slow poison, the false medical diagnosis, the inheritance. It was no longer suspicion. It was proof. Back at the penthouse, Derek stared out at the skyline, the storm clouds gathering again. Amara entered quietly with some documents. You're going to expose her? She asked. Not yet, he said. If I do it now, she'll escape with Hargrove's help. I want them to show their real faces, in front of everyone. Amara hesitated. And me? What happens to me after this? He looked at her, really looked at her for the first time. The girl who risked her job, her safety, her future, just to stop a man she didn't even know from taking a sip. That depends, he said quietly, on whether you're brave enough to stand beside me when the storm breaks. Her voice was steady this time. I already did once. I can do it again. The next morning, Derek made an announcement, a grand engagement gala for him and Cassandra, one that would be broadcasted, attended by the city's elite, with every camera rolling. Cassandra smiled when she heard. Hargrove congratulated her over a private call. But neither of them noticed the silent cameras already watching them. And neither of them knew what Derek had slipped into the plan this time: a test, a bait, and a reckoning. As the rain began to fall harder, Cassandra prepared her next move, believing she was one step ahead. She had no idea the game had just turned. The night of the engagement gala arrived like a storm in disguise. The city's skyline glittered under the pale glow of a restless moon, and Derek Lawson's mansion was lit up like a crown jewel on the hill. Luxury cars lined the driveway, and the elite of the city flowed into the hall in silks and diamonds, their laughter echoing like hollow bells. To them, this was a night of celebration, love, wealth, and a future paved in gold. But for Derek, it was the stage of a reckoning. He stood at the top of the grand staircase, black tuxedo sharp against the warm lights, a calm mask on his face. Inside him, his heartbeat was steady, cold, deliberate, ready. Tonight, the world would see who Cassandra truly was. Amara was there too, dressed modestly but more elegantly than before. Derek had arranged it, no longer a maid, tonight she was his assistant, standing at the edge of the crowd, unnoticed by most but carrying a secret heavier than the diamonds on Cassandra's neck. Cassandra descended the stairs like a queen claiming her throne. Her gown was a river of red silk, her smile dazzling, her hand reaching for Derek's. "Ready to make history tonight?" she whispered. Derek nodded with a faint smile. "More than ready." The gala moved like a well-rehearsed play. Guests clinked glasses, a string quartet played in the corner, photographers snapped endless pictures of the perfect couple. Derek played his role charming, gracious, toasting to his future wife. Cassandra glowed under the attention, her hand never leaving his arm. Yet beneath her perfect exterior, there was tension, a flicker in her eyes each time he refused to drink the wine poured for him. Leon Cruz, the investigator, moved quietly through the crowd disguised as security. Cameras were hidden in the chandeliers, microphones placed behind the curtains. Tonight wasn't about celebration, it was about exposure. "Everything's ready," Leon whispered as he passed Derek near the balcony. "They'll trap themselves." The first sign of the trap sprung when Derek announced a private toast for the closest guests in the inner lounge, a secluded area where only his chosen few were invited. Cassandra, of course, followed. So did Hargrove, slipping in with that smug half-smile of a man who thought he had already won. Amara stood by the door, holding the tray of crystal glasses. Derek had given her a task: switch the drinks at the last moment. Not with poison, but with truth. The original glasses, the ones Cassandra's assistant had prepared, were quietly removed. In their place were harmless ones, carefully labeled. Cassandra lifted her glass, her voice honeyed. "To love, to loyalty, and to a future built on trust." "To trust," Hargrove echoed with a smirk. Derek raised his glass slowly. "To truth," he said. They drank. Or rather, Cassandra and Hargrove drank. Derek only touched the glass to his lips. Minutes later, the announcement was made: the engagement would be formalized before the guests, the contracts signed, the fortune declared. Cassandra beamed, certain of her victory. But Derek requested something unusual: that the live broadcast be turned on early, that the guests, and the millions watching, witness a special speech. Cassandra looked puzzled. "A speech? Now?" "Yes," Derek said smoothly. "Because love should never hide in the shadows." As the cameras rolled, Derek stepped forward, his hand resting gently on the table where the wineglasses still stood. "Tonight," he began, his voice steady, "we celebrate a bond that many admire. But I have learned something these past weeks: not everything in this house is as it seems. Sometimes, the people closest to you hide knives behind their smiles." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Cassandra's smile wavered. Hargrove stiffened. Derek continued. "When a poor girl, someone who had nothing to gain, warned me about a danger in my own home, I listened. I doubted, but I listened. And because of that, I am still standing here." Gasps erupted. Cameras zoomed in on Cassandra's face. "Derek, what are you saying?" she hissed, trying to smile for the cameras. He turned to her slowly. "I'm saying that trust is earned, not bought. And tonight, I intend to find out who truly stands by me." He clapped his hands, and Leon entered with a small sealed envelope. "This," Derek said, holding it up, "contains the truth about the wine that was served here. And about the people who served it." Cassandra reached for his arm. "Derek, please, this is humiliating." "No," he interrupted, his voice suddenly sharp, "what's humiliating is plotting to inherit a man's life before he's even gone." The crowd gasped louder. Hargrove tried to step back, but the cameras caught his movement. Then, as if on cue, the lights flickered. A sudden, sharp voice cut through the hall. It was Amara. Her hands trembled as she stepped forward, holding a recording device. "I saw them," she said, her voice clear despite her fear. "I saw Miss Cassandra and Mr. Hargrove put something in his glass that night. I warned him. They tried to fire me, to silence me. But I couldn't stay quiet." All eyes turned to Cassandra. Her face was a mask cracking under the weight of exposure. "This is absurd. She's lying, she wants his money." Derek's eyes were cold as steel. "She wants nothing. She's the only one in this room who wanted me alive." The gala descended into chaos. Guests whispered, cameras flashed, and Hargrove tried to slip away but was stopped by Leon's men. Cassandra turned on Derek, her voice trembling with fury. "You'll regret this. You think they'll believe a maid over me?" Derek stepped closer, his voice low enough only she could hear. "They already do." He turned to the crowd. "This engagement is over." Gasps, murmurs, a storm of whispers filled the air. Cassandra's perfect world cracked in an instant. But this was only the beginning. Because Derek knew people like Cassandra and Hargrove never surrendered easily. And as the guests left one by one, as the cameras shut down and the rain continued to lash the windows, a dark resolve settled in Cassandra's eyes. She would not go quietly. And Derek had just made himself her enemy. The morning after the gala, the city's tabloids exploded like gunfire. Headlines screamed, "Millionaire breaks off engagement in live broadcast." Cassandra Reed exposed in poison plot scandal. Photographs of Derek Lawson standing beside Amara, his quiet savior, were plastered across every social feed, every news portal, every whispered conversation among the powerful. But while the world debated, Cassandra Reed sat in her luxury penthouse, the curtains drawn, her hands gripping a glass of untouched champagne. Her phone buzzed relentlessly, calls from reporters, her lawyers, Hargrove's furious voice hissing threats through the line. Her perfect mask had cracked before the world, but her fury was just beginning to boil. "He humiliated me," she whispered to herself, staring at her reflection in the black screen of her phone. "He thinks this is over? No, this is only the start." Derek, on the other hand, appeared composed. In his office overlooking the skyline, he moved through meetings as if nothing had happened. But deep down, he knew this was not the end. People like Cassandra did not vanish, they plotted. Amara entered quietly with his schedule. She had grown more confident in the days since the gala, though her eyes still carried that cautious humility of someone who knew the world could crush her with a single whisper. "They called again," she said. "Journalists. They want your statement on the engagement." "Tell them I'm focusing on business," Derek replied. "Let them chase shadows." She hesitated before leaving. "You know she won't stop, right?" "Cassandra, she doesn't strike me as the type who accepts defeat." Derek glanced at her, a faint smirk tugging his lips. "I'm counting on that." By the end of that week, the first strike came. A lawsuit, fabricated accusations of misconduct against Amara. Claims that she had stolen expensive jewelry, that she blackmailed Derek to rise from a maid to an assistant. Cassandra's lawyers moved swiftly, feeding the tabloids with a new story, the maid who destroyed a millionaire's love life, now exposed as a thief? Amara broke down when the papers hit her doorstep. "Sir, I swear, this is all lies." "I never." "I know," Derek said firmly, handing her the documents. "This is how people like her fight. They poison the world's view when they can't poison your glass." "But what if they believe her?" "I can't fight them, I don't have money for lawyers or the press." "You have me," Derek interrupted. His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. "And this time, we don't just defend. We strike back." Leon Cruz came with new evidence. Cassandra's financial empire was cracking. Hargrove had distanced himself after the scandal, but not before leaving a trail of shady dealings behind. Offshore accounts. Silent payments. And one damning recording, Cassandra's voice, cold and calculated, saying, "Once it's done, his fortune will be ours." Derek listened to it in silence. Then, for the first time in weeks, he laughed, not with joy, but with the grim satisfaction of a hunter who had found his prey limping. That night, Derek invited Amara to dinner, not as an assistant, but as an ally. They sat in the quiet glow of the penthouse, the city lights sprawling below like a sea of fallen stars. "You warned me when no one else would," he said, cutting his steak with slow precision. "Now the storm is on both our heads. I won't let her destroy you." Amara's voice was soft. "Why? I'm just a girl who cleaned your floors. Why risk everything for me?" He met her gaze. "Because you risked everything for me. In a world full of masks, you were the only real face." She said nothing after that, but her eyes shone in the candlelight, half fear, half something unspoken. The next move came from Cassandra. She appeared on television, her makeup flawless, her tears well-timed. "I loved Derek," she told the cameras, her voice breaking. "But that girl, she twisted him. She wanted my place. She wanted his wealth." The public was divided. Some believed her, after all, a poor maid rising so suddenly was an easy target for suspicion. Others sensed the lies but lacked proof. Derek knew the war had shifted. This wasn't about poison anymore. This was about reputation, about trust, about the empire he had built brick by brick being turned against him. 2 days later, Derek received a message at his private office, a small envelope slipped under the door. Inside was a single note. "You took everything from me. Now watch how easily I take everything from you." No signature. But the handwriting was Cassandra's. Leon urged him to press charges immediately. "You have enough to bury her," the detective said. "Why wait?" Derek stared out at the storm-dark horizon. "Because if I bury her now, she'll dig her way back up with the help of the vultures waiting for a scandal. I don't want her silenced. I want her exposed. Fully." "And the girl?" Leon asked, glancing toward the office where Amara was sorting files. "She stays," Derek said quietly. "Until the last card is played." But Cassandra had already made her next move. Late that night, as rain slicked the streets and the city seemed to hold its breath, a break-in occurred at Derek's subsidiary office. Files were stolen, contracts, confidential plans, and a set of false documents planted to make it appear Derek had embezzled funds. The next morning, authorities were at his door. "Routine investigation," they said. "But until we clear your name, we'll need access to your accounts." Cassandra's shadow was everywhere now, poison in the wine, poison in the press, poison in the law itself. Derek sat alone in his study that evening, the city lights flickering like restless ghosts beyond the glass. Amara approached, hesitant. "Do we fight this? Or do we run?" He looked up at her, his jaw set. "Running is for people who are guilty. We fight. And this time, Amara, we fight on my terms." Her fingers curled around the back of the chair. "Then tell me what to do." "You already did the hardest thing," he said. "You spoke when the world told you to stay silent. Now, we show them what silence costs." Far across the city, Cassandra watched the news coverage with a cold smile. "He's still standing," Hargrove muttered beside her. "Not for long," she whispered. "Tonight, the world doubts him. Tomorrow, it will destroy him." And yet, in that same moment, Derek made a decision that would turn the war completely. He picked up the phone, dialed a number he had not used in years, a name tied to the deepest, most ruthless parts of his empire. "It's time," he said simply. "Make her think she's winning." The city did not sleep easily that week. Derek Lawson's name was everywhere, headlines questioning his ethics, television panels debating his character, whispers in boardrooms predicting his downfall. Cassandra's campaign was working. Every day brought a new article, a new accusation, a new shadow cast over his empire. But behind the tinted windows of his penthouse, Derek was calm, too calm. The storm outside only sharpened his resolve. Amara noticed the change in him. He was no longer the man reacting to attacks, he was the man preparing a strike. "You're not afraid?" she asked one night as they reviewed the false embezzlement charges together. He closed the folder and looked at her with a faint, almost dangerous smile. "Fear is for people who don't know their next move." The move began with silence. Derek gave no statements to the press, no angry denials. He let Cassandra have her stage. Let her climb higher on the mountain of lies. Because he knew the higher she climbed, the harder she would fall. Meanwhile, Leon Cruz dug deeper. The detective uncovered more than anyone expected. Cassandra and Hargrove had not only plotted against Derek but had siphoned funds from several charities linked to his name, using his reputation to shield their theft. Offshore accounts, false trusts, and shell companies, each piece linked like a chain. One night, Leon placed a thick dossier on Derek's desk. "This is everything. Enough to end them. Derek flipped through the papers slowly, his expression unreadable. Not yet. Timing is everything. And so, Derek extended an invitation, public, grand, and impossible to refuse. A charity gala to clear his name and support the truth. It was a masterstroke. The press called it a desperate stunt, Cassandra called it his last gasp. She accepted the invitation immediately. She thinks it's a trap, Leon murmured. It is, Derek replied. But it's hers, not mine. The night of the charity gala was colder than the last. The hall was bathed in silver and blue light, a sharp contrast to the warm gold of the engagement party weeks before. Cameras rolled, microphones glinted like hungry eyes. Amara stood beside the stage this time, not as a servant, not even as an assistant, but as a named witness. The tabloids had painted her as a thief, Derek had given her a voice. She's going to try something tonight, Leon warned, adjusting his earpiece. Hargrove's here too. They're both too calm. Derek straightened his cufflinks. Good. Let them. The speeches began, donors thanking Derek for his past contributions, a few cautious words about the allegations. Then, Cassandra walked in. Dressed in ivory this time, her smile soft, her demeanor saintly. Hargrove followed like a shadow. Derek, she said sweetly, kissing his cheek for the cameras, let's not turn this into another scandal. Let's just show the world we can be civil. Derek's lips curved faintly. Of course, Cassandra. Tonight is all about truth. When the moment came, Derek took the stage. The crowd fell silent. The lights dimmed. Cameras zoomed in. I have been accused, he began, his voice clear, of betrayal, of theft, of letting greed rule my life. Some of these accusations came from those I once called closest to me. A murmur spread. But I built my empire on evidence, not noise. Tonight, I offer the same. He gestured to the screen behind him. A video began to play, grainy surveillance footage of Cassandra and Hargrove in that secluded villa, their voices clear as they discussed the poison, the inheritance, the plan to frame Amara. Gasps erupted. Cassandra's face turned pale, then flushed crimson. Hargrove tried to leave, but security closed in. You planned to steal my fortune, Derek said calmly, turning toward them, and when that failed, you tried to destroy the one person who warned me. Cassandra's mask finally shattered. You set me up, she hissed, forgetting the cameras. You think this makes you noble? You think they'll forgive you? Derek's eyes hardened. I don't need forgiveness. I need the truth to breathe. Authorities moved in. Hargrove was taken away first, his protests drowned by reporters' questions. Cassandra stood frozen, her hands trembling, her perfect life unraveling thread by thread before the entire city. But even then, she whispered as she passed Derek, her voice a blade against his ear, this isn't over. You humiliated me twice. I will burn your name to ashes. That night, after the crowd dispersed and the news channels replayed the footage on every loop, Derek and Amara sat alone in the empty hall. The chandeliers were dim now, the music gone. You won, she said quietly. He looked at her, tired but unbroken. No. We survived. Winning comes later. Amara lowered her gaze. What happens to her? She'll fight in court, scream in the press, and try every trick left in her book. But she's finished. The city doesn't forgive poison. Yet as Derek walked her to the car, a chill ran down his spine. Across the street, in the shadow of the trees, a figure watched, a camera flashed, then vanished. Cassandra's network wasn't dead yet. She was gathering new weapons. And Derek knew the final blow was coming. At midnight, a message lit his private phone. No number. Just a video. It showed Amara's small rented room ransacked, overturned, her belongings scattered. And a voice, low and cold, you saved him once. You won't save him again. Derek's hands clenched into fists. The war had turned personal. The night felt heavy, as though the city itself was holding its breath. Derek Lawson stood at his penthouse window, the city lights flickering far below. In his hand was the anonymous message, a short video of Amara's room ransacked, her things scattered, and that chilling voice warning him, "You saved him once. You won't save him again." He had outmaneuvered Cassandra before, exposed her lies, and broken her mask in front of the world. But now, she had gone deeper. This was no longer about wealth, titles, or inheritance. This was about vengeance. Leon arrived minutes later, his face pale. We traced the message. It was sent from a burner, no clear origin. But we found something else. Cassandra posted bail. Hargrove too. They're both free. Derek's jaw tightened. Then the game hasn't ended. It's just begun. The next morning, news broke of another scandal, but this one targeted Amara directly. Leaked photos, fake documents, stories of her being a con artist who trapped rich men with false sob stories. Cassandra's network was alive and striking back. Amara sat at Derek's kitchen table, her hands clasped tightly, tears threatening her calm voice. They won't stop, will they? They want me to disappear. Derek poured her a cup of tea, his voice steady. You warned me when no one else dared. Now I protect you. That's a promise. But how? She whispered. By ending this once and for all. 3 days later, Derek staged one final move, not in secret this time, but in full light. He called a press conference, not in a ballroom or a gala hall, but in the very orphanage where Cassandra had once funded a wing for her own vanity. Cameras filled the courtyard. Children peeked from behind doors. The city was watching. Cassandra arrived, dressed in black, her eyes like sharpened glass. Still trying to play the saint, she mocked as microphones swarmed. Derek smiled faintly. No. Just telling the truth, one last time. The press conference began with calm statements, how betrayal was never loud, how poison could come with a kiss, how the real victim was not him, but the woman who warned him. Then came the evidence, the second set Leon had kept hidden until now, recorded calls of Cassandra bribing reporters, audio of Hargrove arranging the poison with a foreign supplier, bank transfers from their hidden accounts to smear campaigns. The crowd turned on her. Reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed like lightning. Cassandra's face hardened, but she didn't run this time. Instead, she stepped forward, her voice cutting through the chaos. You think they'll love you for this? Derek, you destroyed my name, my legacy. But do you know what happens when a woman like me has nothing left to lose? The courtyard went silent. That night, Amara's phone rang. A distorted voice, he cannot protect you forever. Meet us alone if you want this to end. She went foolishly, bravely, to the old river docks. Cold winds swept the empty warehouses. Shadows moved. And then Cassandra emerged, no cameras this time, no lawyers, just fury. You ruined everything, Cassandra spat, stepping closer. You should have stayed in your lane, little girl. I only told the truth, Amara replied, her voice trembling but steady. And you tried to kill a man who trusted you. Cassandra's hand flashed, a vial, a thin needle inside. Trust is weakness. Derek arrived seconds later, Leon at his side. He had tracked Amara's phone the moment it went silent. The dock lights flared as his car screeched to a halt. Cassandra, his voice thundered across the water. Enough! For a heartbeat, everything froze, the past, the schemes, the shattered love, the ruined future, all hanging in that cold night. Cassandra turned, her eyes wild. You took everything from me. I took nothing, Derek said. You gave it away when you chose deceit. The standoff ended not with gunfire but with exposure. Leon's men stepped from the shadows, body cameras recording every word. Cassandra lunged once, desperate, but was restrained. The vial shattered harmlessly on the concrete. As they dragged her away, she looked back at Derek, a bitter smile on her lips. You win today. But remember, people only cheer heroes until they find a new villain. Weeks passed. The trials began. Cassandra's empire collapsed. Hargrove turned witness to save himself. The papers finally printed the truth. Amara was cleared, her name restored. The city's whispers turned into apologies, then into silence. One winter morning, Derek visited the same orphanage courtyard where it all began. Children played in the snow. Amara stood beside him, warmer now, stronger. "You could rebuild everything," she said softly. "Your fortune, your name, your peace." He looked at her and smiled faintly. "I will. But not the same way. Not with the same people." "And what about me?" she asked, almost shyly. "You warned me when no one else dared," he replied. "That's something a man doesn't forget." The moral was simple, spoken in Derek's final press interview: trust is fragile. Betrayal is loud. But truth, no matter how quietly spoken, can destroy the loudest lies.